Ke aloha, mai Hawaii, ahiki Utah. When I think of Malia, I think of aloha. And so I've chosen this chant of aloha that was written more than 60 years ago by Auntie Pilahi Paki. The words remind us that aloha doesn't just mean hello and goodbye and I love you. There's so much more to aloha, to the word aloha and to the gestures of aloha. Akahai, Hawaii, meaning kindness, to be expressed with a feeling of sincerity. Lokahi, Hawaii, meaning unity, to be expressed with a feeling of harmony. Olu Olu, Hawaii, meaning pleasantness, to be expressed with a feeling of agreeability. Ha'a Ha'a, Hawaii, meaning humility, to be expressed with a feeling of modesty. And Aho Nui, Hawaii, meaning patience, to be expressed with a feeling of perseverance. Akahai ana Hawaii, lokahi akulike, olu olu kamana'o, ha'a ha'a koukulana, aho nui alana kila. Aloha mai ana Hawaii, o ke aloha no ka mea nui, e o mai ana Hawaii, nā pua, nā lei, nā mamo. Ala mai ka lahui, laula kaulana, o mai ka lehu lehu, ha'ahe o ana Hawaii. Ano ai me ke aloha, aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before Thee here in this chapel, in many homes and hearts throughout the area, and even across the seas, to come together to celebrate the life of our wife, our mother, our daughter, our sister, and our dear friend. We are grateful for the life of Malia and all that she has done to help those around her, to be kind, and to share the spirit of aloha. We ask that as we go about these proceedings and as we go about this day, that we'll remember the life and the love that she shared, that we'll talk story, and we'll see the true blessing that Malia's life truly was. We ask for Thy Spirit, and we ask for the Spirit of aloha, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of peace will be with us. And we ask and pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
gathered round your grave to grieve. Wish I could see the angels' faces when they hear your sweet voice sing. So go rest high on that mountain. Girl, your work on earth is done. And go to heaven shouting love for the Father and Son. So go rest high on that mountain. Girl, your work on earth is done. And go to heaven shouting love for the Father and Son. And go to heaven shouting love for the Father and Son.
Hele mai lau kaula I ke kai e. Ke malama lama o ni I hau a mali e. A mali e pā ka inu ai la, ke inu mai la. Nā hala o nawe I ke kai. No nawe ka hala. No puna ka wahine, no ka lua no I Kilauea. Ai.
Malia would be completely thrilled with everyone that's here today and everyone that's joining us from all over the world. When she asked me to give her eulogy, I thought that was the meanest and cruelest thing she could ever do. So in her last weeks, I sat by her bed and made her help me. Just want to thank everyone for the sacrifices they've made for coming here and for waiting 6 months to be here with us celebrating Malia today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Krista. I am Malia's sister, and I was honored actually to give her eulogy. I'm not quite sure how you sum up the life of your best friend, your number one partner in crime, and the one who's been with you for your whole life. But we're gonna try. I've never given a eulogy before, so like some people do, I turned to Mr. Google to see the proper and correct way to do this. Mr. Google says the eulogy should last no more than 10 minutes, so this is not going to be a proper eulogy, because there's no way I can sum up the life of such a wonderful person in 10 minutes. Malia joined our family 5 weeks earlier than expected on the afternoon of May 1st, 1978 in San Antonio, Texas. She was the third child and second daughter to Leon and Pualani Graham. Her older brother, Kalani, and I were excited for a little sister. The following year after her birth, the family moved to Ohio, where Jonathan, or Keikoa, or Bud, joined the family and completed our family. The time Malia spent in Ohio was filled with many happy memories. Family road trips to New England, Washington, D.C., and New York, and many other places. Summer nights were spent playing flashlight tag, kickball, and statue tag with friends in the cul-de-sac. The years we lived in Ohio, our parents took us to Hawaii almost every other summer. We spent time with our grandparents, cousins, aunties, and uncles, and it was there that Malia's love for Hawaii began. She would often sit outside of my aunt's halau and watch the women dance for hours at a time. She was fascinated by them and could sit and watch them all day long. When Malia was 10, the family moved to California. At that time, she did not want to go, so she begged our parents to please let her stay with friends in Ohio rather than moving to California. But in July of 1998, we convinced her that she should come with the rest of the family, and we moved to Vacaville, California. California was very different than Ohio, and it took some adjusting and getting used to. Malia started 5th grade at Elmira Elementary with Mr. May and still remembered when she had to choose a type of store that they had to open. Everyone in this class had to pick a retail store and open one. Some of the other girls wanted to start a casino, but she thought that was too risque. So she went off on her own and made a card store and sold many cards in her store. She continued through junior high at Vacapena, where she would walk across the street and help our mom at the family's country gift store after school. It was her first experience with having a job, and it would help instill a strong work ethic, which would continue throughout her life. Malia attended Wilsey Wood High School and was a member of the band playing the clarinet. High school was full of friends, band trips, influential teachers, and lots of fun memories. One of my funnest memories from high school was when Malia and I were able to go to Europe with our French teacher, Madame Slater. We spent a week visiting Italy, Belgium, France, and Switzerland. Our days were full of baguettes, croissants, museums, and lots of laughter. I have a terrible habit of falling asleep if I'm in a moving vehicle. Every time we'd get on the bus to go to a new city, I would fall asleep within seconds, and she was sitting next to me, beating me and pounding me, trying to wake me up, but I think I slept through half of that trip. I had to live through her pictures for most of it. And it was actually through our French classes in high school that we gave each other the reciprocal nickname of sewer, which originally started as a horrible pronunciation of the French word for sister, but it came to be what we called each other for the rest of our lives. In her junior year of high school, Malia went to live with Uncle Gary and Aunt Netta and their family in Safford, Arizona. She had so many memories and a few bruises from Get Tough sessions. She loved the time she spent in Arizona being close to her paternal grandparents, Grammy and Grampy, before they passed away. She enjoyed Arizona so much, she again begged my parents to let her stay for her senior year. But again, after some convincing, we told her she needed to come back home to Vacaville to finish high school. And she was grateful that she did. She competed in several beauty pageants and was even named Miss Vacaville. She was also highly influenced by her English teacher, Miss Stenberg, who encouraged her to think outside of the box, another philosophy she adopted and stuck with through the rest of her life. After graduating high school, Malia attended BYU Hawaii. She made some of her best friends, like Becca and Callie, while at BYU Hawaii, and had tons of adventures while going to school. Her college experience was the epitome of what college life should be. It was during this time that she was able to spend more time with our maternal grandmother and Hawaiian family, and her love for her ohana and her heritage increased 100-fold. On Christmas Eve in 1998, she came home from college for Christmas break, and it was there she met Dave. The Thurman family were family friends of ours, and they'd been invited over for dinner. Dave was reluctant to go, but finally relented and went to dinner, but he told his parents he wanted to take his own car so he could get out of there early. Well, it's a good thing he did take his car because he was the last person to leave that night. Dave and Malia had an instant connection that would only intensify and strengthen throughout their lives. Malia and Dave started a long-distance relationship spanning from Nashville, Tennessee, where Dave lived, to Laie, Hawaii, where Malia lived. That next summer, Malia decided to shorten the distance by moving to Utah and attending BYU in Provo. In October of 1999, unknown to Malia, Dave flew into Utah and had arranged with her roommates to meet with her. Her roommates told her they were going on a road trip to Las Vegas, and they blindfolded her and put her in a car. They drove her to the Timpanogos Temple where Dave was waiting. When they got to the temple, they told Malia they were just stopping at the gas station. So she got out of the car and was being her usual jovial and loud self. Her roommates kept telling her, quiet down, quiet down. She's like, well, I don't have to be quiet. We're at the gas station. Then when they took the blindfold off, there was Dave down on one knee with a ring asking her to marry him. And as we all know, she said yes, and it was the best decision of her life. Malia and Dave were married on March 25th, 2000. She had moved to Nashville in the beginning of 2000 and transferred schools to Middle Tennessee State University and also started working as a server at Applebee's. Her experience working as a server taught her to always treat those who serve you with kindness, and it taught her to be overly generous to others. While in Tennessee, Malia and Dave became friends with Artie and April. This friendship would be lifelong and a great source of strength and comfort to Malia. Shortly after they were married, Dave's employment took him to Seattle, Washington. Even though Dave didn't want to leave Nashville, he knew it was the right thing to do for his family. Living in Seattle was difficult for Malia. For her Hawaiian soul, there was nowhere close to enough sunshine or warm weather. Dave was gone a lot with his work, and she found herself alone quite frequently. She found employment working for FedEx and also working with adults with developmental disabilities. Her plan was to work for 1 year until she could gain residency and then continue with her schooling. She said one of her best memories was when she was working for FedEx. Dave was actually working for FedEx at the time as the morning handler, and Malia was a driver. Now, if any of you know Malia and her lack of sense of direction, it's kind of funny that she would end up being a driver for FedEx. But their manager at Christmas time decided to pair up Dave and Malia. So Dave was the sorter, Malia was the courier, and they would load the truck and see how many packages they could get out the fastest. They delivered more packages than any of the other teams and thoroughly enjoyed working together. Dave admits that when Malia was a little directionally challenged, he would follow her in his car and show her where the stops were. He continued to do this until she finally got it, and then she had to tell him to go away because he was slowing her down. During the Christmas season, they also applied to work together at a store called the Store of Knowledge. They were both hired, and they worked their shifts together. Dave and Malia were, and still are, a great team, both at their places of employment and in their lives together. After living and working in Seattle for a year, Malia gained her residency, was able to go back to school and finish her degree. And Dave was looking to change careers again, and they felt like they needed to move. Malia told him they couldn't move until she finished her degree. And in May of 2003, after multiple moves to 4 different states and transferring universities 4 different times, Malia finally achieved her goal of getting her bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Washington. She knew how important an education is, and she wanted to be an example to her kids in the importance of setting goals and working hard to achieve your goals and getting a formal education. Dave and Malia moved back to Nashville shortly after she graduated, and they stayed there for 2 more years before coming to Utah and deciding to make this home. What they didn't know at that time is that this would be the place they started their family and raised their beautiful children. That this would be the place that their family would make unforgettable memories. And that this would be the last place Malia would see before leaving this earth. On the day of May 10th, 2005, there was a big storm brewing outside. Little did we know there was also a big storm brewing inside of Malia. The storm caused Malia's water to break, and so they rushed to the hospital, eagerly anticipating the arrival of their first child. The hospital was so busy that they had to shuffle Malia into a triage room. Several hours later, they were thrilled to meet their firstborn child, Jada Kehaulani. They brought her home, and life began anew for their cute little family. 3 years later, they welcomed Taylor Kavika into the family. In 2008, David and Malia and the 2 kids moved into a condo after living with family for the previous 3 years. They loved having their own space, but as a family of 4 grew into a family of 5 with the birth of Mia Lawa'io Makana in 2010, they realized they were quickly outgrowing their little home. In 2011, they moved into their current house and turned it into their family home. It became their safe place from the storms of the world. It became the home of their dreams as they remodeled and renovated it and turned it into the home that they didn't know they would need when Malia's health would begin to fail. It became the place Malia felt safe, where she felt the most love and where the most love was given. In 2008, shortly after Taylor was born, Malia had the opportunity of a lifetime. Her aunt, who we saw earlier, is a kumu hula. She's a master of the hula in Hawaii. She was starting up a class to teach the true art of hula to aspiring dancers. Malia jumped at the opportunity to learn about hula, her ancestors, the true spirit of aloha, and the plight and history of the Hawaiian people. I truly believe our kapuna from here and the other side were calling to her. It didn't take much to ignite her passion for her Hawaiian culture and heritage. For the next 7 years, she traveled to Hawaii every summer to learn from Auntie Mapu and Uncle Kihei. She would stay for a week, soaking in every little thing she could learn about hula, the culture, and ultimately about who she was. When she returned home, she would spend hours practicing those things she learned. She would even wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning before the kids woke up so she could practice. She took her hula very seriously, and anyone who watched her dance could see that. She had a natural talent that flowed through her whole soul. She graduated in 2015 at the top of her class. Malia later told me that she always had felt a closeness with her Hawaiian ancestors, and especially with our tutu, who we call Graham. When Graham died in 2002, Malia felt like part of her link to her Hawaiian ancestors was fading away. She wanted to find out more about her heritage and her culture and where and who she came from. She wanted to be immersed in the culture. She felt a desire and a hunger to learn more about her culture. She also said that she felt like it was calling out to her. She became a sponge and soaked in everything she could about her heritage and the heritage of the Hawaiian people. In 2009, her love of the Hawaiian culture helped her when she and a few friends started a charter school. Their whole philosophy in starting the charter school can be summed up by this quote by an unknown author. There are 2 lasting bequeaths we can give to our children. One is roots and the other is wings. They began brainstorming and meeting in 2009, and in 2011, the charter school was approved. Groundbreaking began, and in 2013, the first students were welcomed into Pacific Heritage Academy. The school continues today, and a tribute to Malia and the other founders, Leah Whitman and Ofa Moie, can be found on their website. In January of 2016, Malia was first diagnosed with cervical cancer. She and Dave looked at their options and decided to fight it hard and fast by choosing to have Malia undergo chemotherapy and radiation. After weeks of treatment, they discovered that the cancer was gone and she was officially in remission. At that time, Malia decided that she was going to live life on her own terms. She applied for and worked a seasonal job at Target over the Christmas season. She thrived in the working environment, and after her job ended, she decided she wanted to keep working. She got a job at Applicant Pro, which she loved. An added perk to her job was that they allowed her to work from home. She set up her own little office in the basement and worked while the kids were at school, and then was able to be full-time mom when they were home. It was the perfect job, and she had the best of both worlds. It was during this time when Malia was working that she said the kids began stepping up a little more and taking more responsibility around the house. Dave also stepped up and helped more at home to make their 2-income household work for them. Little did they know that this was a vital part to the next phase of their lives. In February of 2018, Malia was hospitalized for about a week with excruciating back pain. It was through that hospitalization and the multiple tests and scans that were run that the doctors had discovered that Malia's cancer had metastasized. She underwent countless rounds of chemotherapy and took numerous medications. She was willing to do anything to just have a little bit more time with her family. Over the past few years, Malia never let cancer stop her from taking adventures and creating memories with those she loved. Her children are exceptional musicians, and her weekends were filled with music festivals and competitions. She was so proud of her children and so appreciated their love of music and never tired of listening to them. Karaoke and jam sessions with Artie and April and their kids filled Malia's life with song and good memories. Even in the last few weeks of her life, I sat with her while her kids practiced, and it brought such peace and happiness to her soul. If the family wasn't at a musical festival, they were out camping, hiking, or just creating memories. Malia loved to be outdoors. When she was healthy, she was often found hiking with friends up a mountain, or dirt biking with family and friends, or camping in the forest, or meditating out in nature. Malia had the unique ability to make friends everywhere. She touched so many people's lives, even if she only knew them for a brief time. We have received so many messages from friends of Malia from all over who were touched by her presence in their life. Malia's family meant the world to her. In the last few weeks of her life, all she wanted was for her family to be near her. She wasn't able to go camping or hiking anymore. Her body wouldn't let her dance or even walk. but she could be close to her family and feel their love. She spent a lot of time over the last few weeks of her life listening to her Hawaiian music. It always calmed her and connected her to her ancestors who were waiting for her. Her thoughts throughout the last few weeks were with Auntie Mapu and those other kumu who were on the mauna. Her heart and soul were there, helping to protect the sacred land of her kupuna. Malia left this life and joined her kupuna on March 3rd, 2020, with her family nearby. Although her time on earth was short, the impact she left in our lives and in our hearts will be forever felt. Before she passed, I was able to sit down and talk with her about the events of her life. Even though cancer is a nasty monster and took our beloved Malia way too early, she said there were several things that she had learned from the cancer. Malia said that cancer helped her discover who she really was. She had a lot of time to reflect and think on her life and who she was. Malia also said that cancer helped guide her to meditation and self-care. She learned the importance of taking time for yourself and centering yourself every day. Cancer also taught Malia to slow down and figure out what is really important. Her family and being around people with positive energy was the most important thing to her. Malia also discovered that there is an immense amount of goodness and kindness in the world. Even though her family was going through a huge trial and tragedy, others reached out to them every single day. Whether it was a meal brought in, a service provided, a text or a phone call just to let them know they were being thought about, help with the kids or transportation, the goodness in others shined through the darkness of cancer. Malia also says that they were very blessed to have found their house in their neighborhood. I can't count the numerous times she talked about her neighborhood and how it was the best place for her and her family. Before they added on to the house, they had thought about moving to another home, but she said she was so glad they stayed where they were. Her neighborhood became an extension of her family, and the love she felt from them was immense. And lastly, Malia mentioned that cancer taught her how important family is. She specifically mentioned how grateful she was to our mom, who selflessly gave of her time to come and help with the kids on numerous occasions, whether it was driving them to appointments, picking them up from school, helping with homework after school, or just being there. It was a selfless act of love that Malia greatly appreciated. Malia was determined to make an impact in her children's lives, and she has. She was determined that her kids would always remember her, and they will. She lived her life true to who she was. A friend of mine gave me a poem that I think sums up everything so perfectly. It's called On Another Shore. With tears in our eyes, we wave goodbye from the shore as we watch their ship sail off toward the horizon. Our hearts ache, for we know that they will not be returning to us. Sadly, we recall all the sweet memories we once shared, wishing for the chance to make just one more. We try our best to console each other as the ship grows smaller and smaller till it finally disappears over the horizon. And with heavy hearts, we stand and watch long after the ship is gone from our sight. But on a distant shore, a joyful cry goes out. Here comes the ship, here comes the ship. With tears of joy in their eyes, they rush down to the shore to greet the long-awaited ship. They can hardly wait to see their loved one again, to share their joy and catch up on their own time apart, to reminisce till it is time to go down to the shore together, to watch as the next sail appears on the horizon. And again the cry goes out, here they come, here they come. Finally, they are coming home, and this we call dying. Malia is not gone. She's only on the other shore, rejoicing with her kupuna and those who have been eagerly waiting to see her and hug her and talk to her again. She will always be close to us, encouraging us, comforting us, watching over us, and helping us, until the day our ship sets sail, and she will be waiting for us on the other shore to welcome us home.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I know Malia appreciates it. I know we do appreciate it. I was there on May the 1st, 1978, when Malia passed through the veil and came from the before and joined the Gramohana and entered the now. The Gramohana consisted of Mom and me, Malia and her siblings, Kalani, Ali'i, and Kekoa. Malia came as just a little infant, but I watched her grow into the beautiful young lady that she became. The Gramohana also grew. Sisters-in-law became more like sisters. And I watched as 21 Mo'opuna joined the group. And all of them love their Auntie Malia. And the last little Mo'opuna to come, little Keola, had the special opportunity to have his Auntie Malia help him pass through the veil to come join the Gramohana in the now. I was there when Mom and I introduced her to Dave Thurman on that Christmas Eve of 1998. I was there 15 months later when Dave and Malia joined together and started the Thurman Ohana on March the 25th, 2000. Later, Jada, Taylor, and Mia all joined together and they started the Thurman Ohana. Finally, I was there and watched as Malia lost her battle with cancer. And she walked the rainbow on March the 3rd, 2020. There are plenty of friends and family watching here in the now as Malia walked the rainbow. Passed through the veil and entered the after. And there was plenty of family in the after watching her come. I'm sure that one of the first to greet Malia was great-grandmother Stella Virginia Kirkham Clayton. I know the picture is very small, but we don't have very many pictures of Grandma Stella. Because Grandma Stella also, like Malia, had to leave her family of young children, and at the age of 28, she walked the rainbow. That left my mother, who was 6 years old at the time, alone in life, without a mother. I'm sure that Malia's Grammy, Laval Clayton Graham, was happy to introduce Malia to other members of the Clayton Ohana. Next to Grammy would be Grampy, Franklin Wayne Graham, to give her a Grampy kiss of welcome. And all of his grandchildren know what that is. And he's there to introduce Malia to even more members of the Gramohana. Near the front of the people waiting to greet Malia would be Papa, Bruce Howell, who has been busy in the after, organizing the Howell Ohana for all those to meet. Next would be Graham, Juanita Momi Wong Howell, also welcoming Malia to the after, and her place in the Wangohana. Graham is waiting to see how many of her Mo'opuna will join her and Papa and have their ashes float in the refreshing waters of home in Lanikai Beach. Malia will be the first. At some time, sooner or later, Malia will have the chance and the joyful opportunity to meet her Savior. And because of his atonement, he made it possible for Malia and for all of us to return to him clean and pure, ready to enter the kingdom of God, that we may all do so, is my prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
If you know me and Malia, you know we do everything together. So she was coming with me. First, before I start, I just want to thank everybody who's been involved with helping put this all together. There was a tremendous amount of work to put this Zoom together, to set this up. It was a long 6 months waiting for this celebration of life to happen, but it was the right thing, right time, and the right people are involved, and it's so much love. And I have to just say thank you so much. So this is going to be a little reminiscing session with Malia and I. So I'm going to be talking to her, but I'm going to let you guys in on it. If you guys can go ahead and keep the microphone on, it's fine. They can listen. And I may even have to put my glasses on here, I think, because I'm getting old. Malia, the first day I met you, Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1998, will forever be the day my life changed. The attraction to you, I felt, was electric and filled the room with energy. We both felt it. I think I knew right then and there that it was deeper than attraction, but I couldn't get past the moment of, man, she is hot. That week we spent together was filled with so much fun, flirting and building trust with each other, which it seemed to be an instant trust. I think secretly we both desired to explore that friendship a little further to see if there was more to it. We both made our own personal commitments to scope out the situation before going our separate ways. You went back to Hawaii, I went back to Nashville, but we totally had to play it cool. No big deal, whatever. We totally just played it down. After that first meeting and that magical week, and our Christmas break was over, our long-distance dating commenced over the weeks and months. We continued adding to the foundation of our relationship through letters and phone calls, and it was going really well. Almost too good to be true. So I thought, this is going to blow up in my face. I just know it. I have a horrible track record. I always get dumped. So what did I do? I tried to break up with you. And that was a really bad idea. You let me think I was in control, but I quickly realized the error of my ways, and you took me back. I think I lasted like 24 hours. Eventually, you would find your way back to the mainland, which I was really ecstatic about, because now we had more chances to see each other. One of those memorable days was our first official date to Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. You remember that? There you would witness me trying to deal with and overcome my very real fear of heights. While I tried to play it cool on the people mover, you teased me, but after a few minutes, I saw your compassion shine through when you saw the true fear in my eyes. You held my hand and you comforted me to the end. I don't know how I did it without you. So while I toured the country and chased my dream in the music world, you would look at my tour schedule and see if I'd be close enough to visit. And if I was, you'd drag your sister, you'd drag Krista with you, and try to find any concert that you could get to and spend a few minutes with me. And your patience with me was amazing as I was in work mode. And anybody who's seen me in work mode, I get very tunnel vision. She would stay right there. Those days that you would sacrifice your time and Krista's and travel so far to see me spoke so much love into my heart. As things became more serious, we decided it was time to put our relationship to the test. So we found a week that you could come to Nashville to see if we could really stand each other. And we quickly found out that we were completely inseparable, and the week was gone in a blink. I never wanted to let you go. And that trip sealed the deal for both of us. We were 100% fully in love. And putting you on that plane to go back home just tore my heart out. But I knew we'd be back together. I just had to be patient. However, you made it very clear that I needed to wait for you to give me the green light before we went anywhere, which I interpreted that this was going to be years. But it didn't take long at all. Those wheels were in motion, and love moved forward. And when you gave me the green light, I was ready. Now that surprise engagement, Wednesday, October 27th, 1999, was just that. As Krista talked about, Malia, I have to give you a little bit of backstory on that. Malia had my tour schedule, and I was traveling all over the country. But whenever I had a few minutes or a few days off, I would either be on a plane or I would drive to Utah, because I lived in Nashville and she was in Utah at that time. And I would spend, as much time as I could with her. Well, the week that I was going to propose, I told her I had to work. I had more things to do. And she's like, "What? No, you don't. I'm looking at your schedule." And I was like, "Well, no, Kevin's got things for me to do." And I said, "Well, what does he have you doing?" "I don't know. I just have to work." And she got so mad at me. She was so frustrated that I wouldn't come out and spend time with her, which actually turned out to be perfect, because by the time her roommates got to her and said, "Hey, we're going to go do a surprise trip to Vegas," she was like, "Forget you, Dave. I'm going to Vegas." So that time when she got out of the car, when she was blindfolded and said, "Why do I have to be quiet at a gas station?" I lost it, because that's just so her. And when they walked her up to me and I was kneeling down and they pulled the blindfold off, that look of surprise of me there, that ring in my hand, it was like lightning struck right there. It was unbelievable. The world disappeared. As it so often did with Malia and I. I don't know where her roommates went. Heck, I don't even know where we went. We were in a cloud. We were just together, and something clicked and we were there. Shortly after that engagement, you moved to Nashville so we can continue our courtship before getting married. And the wedding was perfect. We thoughtfully planned the wedding to be in Utah so that older family that lived there didn't have to travel. And it was important to us to have as many family members there as possible, because this was a big deal for us. And the beauty and the energy around our union was so elevated, all could feel it. It was a love story coming true before so many witnesses. Interestingly, this would be the first time I would have the privilege of taking care of you on our wedding day. From a horrible toothache and an emergency extraction the night before the wedding, as well as coming down with an illness while on our honeymoon in Cabo. You let me nurse you through those tough days, and it seemed to pull us closer. How would we have known that this small moment would be something we'd draw upon later in our lives? The testing of our marriage started pretty quickly. I changed jobs almost immediately after the honeymoon, and we moved to Nashville moved from Nashville to Seattle. And I know you did not want to leave Nashville. Those were tough years in Seattle. We had great times, but we also struggled to find our groove as a couple. It didn't help that we were both so stubborn and strong-willed. However, the love that we have was stronger than our stubborn streak, which is really saying something. Have you met you? The love smoothed out the bumps and built bridges over impossible canyons. It humbled us both and taught us how to listen to our hearts and get out of our heads. It's very true that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And those first few years were refiner's fire that we needed to build the confidence in our love and know that we could conquer mountains together. Our first babies were our sweet kitties, Pokey and Callie. They came into our lives in Seattle and taught us that we could expand and change our hearts and be filled with more love than we thought possible. The fun part for me was watching you go from a cat hater to a fierce defender of kitties. We both changed with those two little love buckets, inside and together. Later, we became partners in our trucking business that we scratched out from nothing and grew it into a thriving business. And those were exciting, exhausting, rewarding, and trying times. Starting and running a business as a couple can really test you. We found that we loved working together, building succeeding, even failing together. As long as we had each other, it didn't matter because we found a way to laugh and relish every experience. And man, those were some experiences. And we really should have written a book. After selling our business and moving back to Nashville, you watched me struggle to support our family. And you never, ever judged me. You never complained, nagged, or hinted that I was flailing. You supported me through all those challenges. And our love continued to layer in and grow. After years of struggling and one day realizing you were pregnant with Jada, we decided to sell everything and we made the journey back to Utah to make a fresh start and put me back in school and try to find a way to support our now growing family. Jada was born that stormy day in May, and our lives would take a new turn. Parenthood. And you were scared to be a mom. You didn't know if you could do it. But the minute Jada was in your arms, it clicked. I could see the spark in you. And that spark grew into a flame, which would eventually lead you to the point of being inducted into the Motherhood Hall of Fame. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, and I can feel you rolling your eyes at me. But I see people shaking their head. They know what kind of mother you were, right? Plus, I have the microphone, and there's nothing you can do about it. Even after the move to Utah, life was actually still pretty tough. I still didn't know how I was going to support the family, and we were both scared. I worked odd jobs that barely paid enough to eat. I went to school. I even got laid off at one point. I would eventually land a job at Omniture that would change our lives. But before that, and during those times, I barely saw you and Jada. And you continued to support and encourage me, even when I saw the tears in your eyes because you were so afraid. You believed in me. Your faith and love sustained me through those very tough years. We continued to grow as a family, adding Taylor a couple of years later, and your confidence as a mother blossomed as the love of our family deepened. Along with building our family, your hula journey had started to take shape, and you were learning more of who you are or were. Watching you dream, learn, and grow through your hula journey made me fall in love with you even more. My career had finally taken shape for the first time in our married lives, and we felt a sense of direction and maybe even a little stability. The happiness grew, as did our family once more with Mia, and your talents and abilities as a mom were shining through, and you were totally rocking it. Now, you still had self-doubts, and you had moments of you wanted to give up and just go back to work. But the drive inside of you to provide our kids with an amazing experience overruled. And I know how much you wanted certain things in your life, but you chose the road of sacrifice, which that sacrifice has paid more dividends than any professional job could ever pay. Our family grew, and we needed a place to call home, as condo living was not the end game for us. I can still remember the day you called me up and apologetically asked me to come and look at this little 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house in American Fork. Thanks, Brenda. That's our real estate agent. I think she's actually tuning in. Really? 3-bedroom, 1-bath? You gave me about 50 disclaimers regarding its condition and small size before I got there. I was nervous. You felt something special, and you wanted me to see if I felt anything. And when I drove up, I have to be honest, I wasn't impressed. However, as I got out of the car and I walked up to the home, I felt what you felt. The home was nothing special. It didn't meet our criteria at all. We could not figure out what it was about this place. So we decided, let's buy it, let's live there a couple years, and then we'll rent it out and find our dream home. Little did we know that small home and wonderful neighborhood would catch our hearts and become the place where our love would amplify 100 times over. A few years later, we needed to figure out what we were going to do about our living arrangements with our growing family, and it didn't take long at all to realize we needed to stay right here. So we added onto the home and even put our hopes and dreams into pennies that we threw into the fresh concrete as the contractor poured the foundation, and it would officially become the family home where we would sink our roots deep. And by the way, sweetie, Artie is here. And Artie, my best friend who I grew up with, built that house, along with his wife, April. April's dad also built that house. The two people that I love so much. I love your dad, April. Brunel, if you're out there, I love you. You are amazing. You brought so much love into that, to building our home and making it what it is. And so honored that you were both involved with creating our family home. The years continued to fly by. Kids excelled at school. Close relationships were formed in the neighborhood, and we built amazing memories in our home. We hosted kids' parties, family and friend get-togethers. We had jam sessions, closet talks with the kids, family commission meetings. There were meltdowns, but there were breakthroughs. But everything that was done in that home, everything done in that home was done in love. That's the key ingredient to our family, right? With the stability in our lives increasing, your strength and desire to give back blossomed and brought our family up. You left a beautiful legacy by co-founding the Pacific Heritage Charter School with Ofa and Leah to benefit those of Polynesian descent. And you led our family to volunteer and give back, to become a bigger part of the community. You brought service into our family. That included multiple opportunities to go downtown to what? What did we do? Fed the homeless, right? That was amazing. Your personal development through your hula journey continued as you became you became stronger physically and spiritually. The pinnacle being when you graduated as an accomplished dancer in 2015. Your extreme hard work and dedication brought you to that place, and it has burned into my memory the day that you received the title of Alapa. You were beaming with so much pride, strength, and beauty and love. How did I get so lucky? Your strength, love, and self-confidence inspired so many people. Your unconditional love spread throughout the community and the people you touched. The love that was forming around you and your family was becoming the biggest, enveloping, warm, safe, and secure blanket you could ever imagine. There was a confidence and contentment that had been built that we could see being the foundation for a long and happy life together. But then in 2016, our world stopped when you were diagnosed with cancer. I'll never forget sitting in the doctor's office, holding your hand when we got the news. Our world changed that day. We didn't know to what extent, but we knew that it was game on at that point. And the connections and relationships to family, friends, and neighbors that we had meticulously cultivated would later become the thing that would carry us through the next 4 years. That first year of surgeries, radiation, and chemo brought tremendous amounts of pain and suffering as you battled cancer like a warrior. The doctors told us that we have one shot at curing the cancer, but you tackled it like everything in your life with total commitment and passion. You were determined to do everything in your power to fight and stay with your family. This would also be the time that you would start to look into yourself and become more mindful, compassionate, spiritual, and find the true meaning of love. I was absolutely amazed at how you were able to be centered and peaceful when your world was anything but. You increased your connection and your understanding of your Hawaiian heritage. You connected with nature in a way that was healing to you. I watched miracles happen when you would open your heart and feel. And most importantly, you set a beautiful tone in our home as well as an example for me, Jada, Taylor, and Mia on how to find and exemplify gratitude even when it looks like there's nothing to be grateful for. Those lessons are still with us today. And they guide me when I'm doubting my own abilities as a parent. We got through that first year and you were freaking exhausted, but you did it. The cancer was in remission. You officially had no evidence of disease. And we were feeling confident that you had kicked cancer's trash and we were on to the next phase in our life. We ripped off that rearview mirror. But we would no longer take things for granted. We escaped the nightmare and counted ourselves as the lucky ones. And with a new appreciation for health, you redoubled your efforts on taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And you and I locked arms and became even more united on following our hearts and making the best decision for our little family. We had begun a journey of financial peace the same month you were diagnosed. And after you went into remission, we continued that journey until we met our goal, which only brought more peace and love into our home. And it strengthened us as a couple and as a family. You continued to build relationships with so many people. You invested time and energy to assist people that were going through faith crisis. You cried with them, you loved them, and most importantly, you heard them. You joined cancer support groups online where you would seek out folks to connect with and support. Your compassion for people going through similar things grew day by day, and you were no longer just affecting people near you. You went global thanks to social media. The power of love and strength permeated our home. Our relationship as a couple had risen to new heights that I had never knew existed. Petty things no longer had a place in our communication. The language of love is what was spoken in our home. And it was as if we had reached another plane of communication, and it was beautiful. Jada, Taylor, and Mia have always felt your deep commitment and love towards them. Since the time they were little, you made their lives a charmed and magical experience. You knew how to tap into the very essence of being a kid. We both made sure that they knew without a doubt that they were always our number one priority, and you made sure that it was evident by everything you did. You volunteered at virtually every school function. All the kids' teachers knew you, and they loved you so much for adding the energy and time to help them. You created really fun traditions at home. Every April Fool's Day, the kids would not know what they're going to be eating. You gotta love anxiety-producing holidays, right? Wait. Does that explain? I don't know. Well, Valentine's, that's always a fun one, where mom would make menus, and the kids would have to try to guess the order, and if they got it wrong, they were served backwards. Sometimes they would get a fork first, and a napkin, and then dessert, and then it was fun. Summers were always planned during our whiteboarding sessions in May. We have a big whiteboard we'd pull out and write everything that we wanted to do in that summer. We'd do our best to check it off. And that would include the 4th of July, Balloon Festival, Stadium of Fire, concerts in the park, hiking, your favorite, Mia, right? Hiking. Amazing camping trips, family reunions, dirt biking, kayaking, picnics at South Fork. And the number of photos that we have is ridiculous. It's like 30,000 photos in our photo thing. I mean, it's crazy. We just went a little overboard. Every Halloween you would dress up, and not only would you dress up, you would own or become that character. It was awesome. We'd always make sure we had Thanksgiving with family, and of course, Christmas time. You were the one that really made Christmas magical. I can still close my eyes and see your glowing face as you would be so excited about Christmas. And I would love how you would literally stress out about every detail because you wanted it to be perfect. And sometimes it was, and sometimes it still was. You were just super hard on yourself. New Year's Eve parties where we'd decorate the house and the kids could invite all their friends and they could eat unlimited candy, anything they wanted, any food, whatever it is, they could eat as much as they want until midnight. The house would be rocking as I'd set up a PA speaker and crank it up. And guess who would be in the middle of all of that, louder than everybody? Mom. Singing karaoke to the top of her lungs, embarrassing anybody that she could embarrass, being her crazy, crazy fun self. Every birthday was a day to shower even more love on these very lucky kids. They had the best mom, and they knew it. These kids were immersed in so much love from you. You built an amazing legacy with them. 2 years after remission, then one day you weren't feeling so hot. You had been doing a CrossFit-style program and thought you had injured yourself. After a couple of trips to the Instacare, you were admitted to the hospital due to full renal failure. We were so confused. What in the world? Why are your kidneys failing? It made no sense. Then the doctor came back and told us that there was a mass that was killing your kidneys, and he was literally paging your oncologist while he was talking to us. But we didn't need a scan to tell us what we already knew. Our hearts were breaking. We had already had this conversation with the oncologist before, and we knew if this was cancer, that was it. We could only buy time. We met with the oncologist after that scan, and it was confirmed that the cancer had returned. Dr. Sauce, the kindest oncologist a person could have, sat with us to review the scan. He turned it on. He turned it right back off. He hugged you and said, "You need to go home, spend time with your family." And that broke us both wide open in that office, and we just sobbed. And he let us stay as long as we needed to stay. There were two options at this point: go through chemo to buy more time, or let cancer take its course. And you guys all know the fighter that she is. And being the warrior that you are, you were ready to fight. You still believed that there was a chance they could be wrong, and you were not going down without a massive fight. And that's exactly what we did. Every treatment, whether medical or holistic, that made sense, we did it. And we made the best cancer fighting team. But we also knew we had to be realistic, because we understood that there was only a 6% chance that you could make it to 3 years. So we had to make sure we didn't bury our heads in the sand. We faced that reality, and we were completely open and honest with the kids and all of our family. We had to figure out how to balance this fight and make sure that we were still living. And this took a tremendous amount of work and communication. But we were okay with that. We had practiced and honed those skills over the 18 years we had been together. And because of that work, we were able to find balance. And in doing so, we made amazing memories. We traveled to bucket list places, continued to live bigger and better lives personally and as a family. And we learned deeper gratitude. And another thing that we learned that's so hard is we learned how to accept help. We received so much help. Family, oh my gosh. Taggart's, Auntie Shauna, Tutu. How many times have I called you, middle of the night, I'm taking Malia to the ER. And it's not even a blink, and you're like, I'll meet you there. Take the kids, boom, knew the code to the house, knew exactly where everything was. Like, we couldn't have done it without you. And many of you in this audience are directly responsible for helping our family through the toughest thing a family has to go through. And you helped us to continue our journey and to build these memories despite this miserable disease. You loved us and cared for us, and we still feel that deeply to this day. And Malia and I will forever be in your debt for this. Another year zipped by. We found ourselves living our best lives ever, despite the prognosis. Last May, we got a wild hair and decided to go on one of our crazy spontaneous trips together. Literally super spontaneous. We were at a festival going home. And her and I were just like, we need to go. We just need to get out of here. I'm calling my brother, called Kalani, and said, can you and Michelle take the kids for a couple days? We're going to get out of town. We just need to go spend some time together. And of course, you guys are just always there. We got home. We were in Ogden. We got home, dropped off Malia. I took the kids. They packed a bag. I don't even know if you had half the clothes you needed. We threw the stuff together. They ran down to Payson. And while I was driving back, Malia had packed our bags, literally hopped in the car, and headed west. It had been years since we'd done something like this. And it felt so good and reminded us of our carefree days. And those days were filled with absolute magic because we didn't know anything was wrong. We set our sights on Lake Tahoe and we jumped in the car and went for it. We didn't even have a place that we knew we were going to stay. She literally called places on the way there to find out if we could even find a place. And she did. You did. You found it. It was beautiful. When we got there, we rented Lime scooters and we raced all over Lake Tahoe. We got caught in a big mountain rain downpour on these scooters, and we got soaking wet, and we just laughed hysterically at how ridiculous we looked. We rented a boat and we went out to Emerald Bay. We hiked beautiful trails and connected with each other and nature. But something was wrong. We noticed every day that we were there, your energy was quickly going downhill, and we both had a sinking feeling. When we got back, we went to visit the doctor, which revealed this devastating news that the cancer was back with a vengeance. However, this time we were out of options. Our medical oncologist, Dr. Litton, who we love dearly, told us that we have one treatment that may be 30% effective. Way stretched that it will work. But we needed a plan for the worst. He said 6 to 9 months if the treatment worked. And if it didn't, we needed hospice right now. That's how fast it was. You guys were coming home from Alaska, and I called you and said, you need to come see Malia immediately. It was that bad. But you opted for the treatment, which was the right call. For whatever reason, chemo loves your body, and it beat the cancer back. So it was chemo every Wednesday until it stopped working. And at that point, when it worked, we immediately booked flights to Hawaii so you could go home one more time and say goodbye. You were so incredibly sick from the chemo, we didn't know how this was going to work. Your fight and determination, along with a host of miracles and angels, cleared the insurmountable hurdles, and we made it home to Hawaii. One of those miracles being that we found a house that was to rent that was 1 block away from your grandparents' house, where your mom grew up, and where your auntie and uncle still live. What are the odds? This was no coincidence. You were given an opportunity to relive your childhood memories again while sharing the stories and magic with your family. The energy around that trip was so good and so right. It was where we needed to be. And your Auntie Mapu immediately felt it as well. And she knew that there was something special happening and that your mom needed to be there. So she secretly called your mom and told her, "You're getting on a plane now." How much time did she give you? 6 hours. 6 hours. She gave you 6 hours to get on that plane. None of us had a clue that she was coming, and I'm so glad we captured the moment on camera as you walked out of the room after a nap to see your mom standing there right in front of you. You immediately burst into tears, and the heavens opened up on the both of you as you embraced, and the love rushed through that little home. We all felt it. We were all home. It was a sacred week filled with ohana and aloha that words don't even come close to explaining the feeling that was there. The final connections were being made in all of our hearts that will forever tie us back to you, or tie us back to that little part of Oahu. The rest of the summer was spent helping you find just enough strength to go and do the next thing. We went to Granite Flats, Mirror Lake. We went to Bryce Canyon. We went to Tuacahn. Tuacahn was amazing. Really, really cool experience there, magical. Then our final trip was to Anaheim. You wanted to go to one more hula workshop. And so we did it. We're like, we're going. We rented a truck and we hooked up the trailer and we went. Again, didn't know how we were going to. But you had to see your hula sisters and your kumu one more time. And we had to squeeze a day into Disneyland too. But that was it. You had no more. You had nothing left. And we knew it was time for you to come home and spend your final months together with just your family. I can't see. When we learned that the fight was nearing the end and that we had to say goodbye sooner than we anticipated, there was no panic. There were no regrets. There was only the feeling that we did everything possible that we could have done to fight, love, and build our family despite this wicked disease. It could not break our love, and it could not break our family. The last 2 months we had together before you passed are the sweetest 2 months of my life. We were given a last chance after a scare in January, and we thought we were going to lose you then, and we were so blessed to have you back. And after that point, you were determined to make the best of those final weeks. So we sat on that love seat in our front room for 2 months, holding hands, laughing, crying, and talking. We had time with the kids. I loved it when they would come home from school and they would spread their homework out on the floor and you would continue to help them, ask how their day was, constantly love on them. And family came to visit. That was a good time. Kalani, Bud, Krista, like at our house all the time. It almost felt like you guys had moved in. It was amazing. The reminiscing, you guys laughed so much, and the stories were just, they were amazing. During that 2 months, there was such a beautiful spirit in that home. so much love in that little unremarkable home that we looked at 9 years earlier and didn't know why it called to us. It all had come full circle in those final days. It was bursting at the seams with love. And those who were lucky enough to witness it know what I'm talking about. Even in your last 24 hours of your greatest suffering, you expressed love and kindness and thought of others before you thought of your own comfort. Those moments spoke volumes about who you are. And when the end came, the home was filled with family and love, exactly the way you wanted it. Sweetheart, you've touched so many lives and made such a huge mark on this world. I'm amazed at all the people that reach out to me to this day to tell me how much they love you and that they still think of you often and that they have Malia moments. Your legacy continues on through others. And you're still changing lives and you're still spreading love. I know we did everything we could to prepare for this day, and you worried about me and the kids. You were concerned I was going to be all mopey and sad all the time, which I am. I told you I'd be fine. But I have to admit, losing you broke me way more than I realized it would. I'm still broken, but I'm finding my way. I'm learning so much and have witnessed our love to continue to grow over the last 6 months, which I didn't expect. And so many experiences that have happened since you left this earth that are a constant reminder that you still love me and I still love you. Physical separation can't keep us apart. We're soulmates. And you've become one with my heart. And I feel you in my heart all the time. And I feel you in our special home. I think everybody does. It comes in that home. You feel you there. You've inspired me to meditate, which is now an important part of my life and connects me to you. And I feel you through others as they speak about those special Malia moments since you left. You're still here with us and continue to build that warm blanket of love that is our family. Sweetheart, I promise you, I will continue to honor you as I raise our beautiful Jada, who has your strength and determination, our hardworking Taylor, who has your sensitivity and emotional connections, and our bright light, little Mia, who has your sweet disposition and sassy attitude. You may not be by my side, but I know you will always be in my heart. I feel that deeply. Our love is forever. I love you.
So this section of the program is called Ha'i Aloha, and it's our talk story session. If any of you have ever been to one around Hawaiians, there's a bunch of them sitting right over there, all my friends. We love to talk story. We get together in the park every now and then at 6 feet apart and bring our lunch and talk story. So this is our talk story session, and I'm going to start it off. And it will end when my oldest son, I really forgot to tell you this, gets up and tells his story. he will be the final person, and then we'll go on with the closing. My husband Ben and I both sing with the Payson Civic Chorale. We've been singing with them for many, many, many years. And Malia had asked me if I would ask them to sing a song at the end of her service. So last year, I didn't get back with the chorale because I lived with Malia most of the time, so I didn't join them, but I did talk to the director, and they chose, or I chose, It Is Well With My Soul to be the song to be sung today. And when we realized that choral groups are not singing, my sister and Dave and I were on a Zoom meeting, and she said, well, why don't you get your kids and their oldest kids, your oldest grandkids, and you guys sing it? And I went, no, this is a song that's sung by choirs. It's not really sung by families. So then, all of a sudden, like the light bulb went off. She said, I know what. I remember your kids, you guys would get your kids up in your sacrament meeting, and you would sing all the time while you were growing up, while they were growing up. And they know this because we did all the time. And sometimes when my husband was bishop and we didn't have a special musical number, well, the Grahams got up and sang. So today, you Grahams and even your children are going to come join us today, and we're going to sing Love at Home because that was one of our favorites. As the kids were growing up, we had every part in the four-part choir, so it worked out really well. There's one thing Malia wanted me to tell you, and I didn't even know about it, but when we would talk story with Malia, the boys would come over at lunchtime, and if Krista wasn't working, she'd come join us, and we would just eat together, and sometimes we just took our lunch into her room, and we would just talk story and reminisce about all these different things that happened in their lives. And I was, as the mom, I was a little surprised because some of these things I hadn't heard of before. And so she shared one incident, and she said, I want you to tell this story, Mom, because Dad doesn't even know about it. And I thought, oh, okay. So this day that she was talking to me, I don't think Ali'i was there, but I know the two boys were there. And she said that she had been bullied by a kid in the school. And so she told her dad that she had a sore throat and she should stay home from school. So she got to stay home because I made them see their dad if they thought they were sick, since he was the doctor in the family. And so he had let her stay home, and then come to find out, the next day she kind of said the same thing. So I finally just took her in to see if she had tonsillitis or needed her tonsils out or something. And they said, no, everything was fine. But she kept complaining about this sore throat. And she tells me that her dad finally took her in, and they took her tonsils out. And she said, Mom, I never had a sore throat, not even that first day. And I said, Malia, you were lying. And she said, Mom, I was being bullied. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? She says, because you would have gone to the school and taken care of it. She said, I didn't want to be embarrassed. I probably would have. But it was so great during those last couple of months to be able to be there with their family and to be able to get together with my other kids and talk about some of the experiences they had growing up. And one day she told me, she said, Mom, I think we had the best childhood growing up. There's nothing that could have been perfect. She said, I totally remember when we would go to Hawaii. When we lived in Ohio, my husband would drive me up to Chicago because there was a direct flight from Chicago to Honolulu, an 8-hour flight. So I'd take the red eye and I'd get the kids in their jammies. And I'd get them on the plane, and I'd have 2 lying down on the floor. We'd take the middle section, and 1 on the rows of seats next to me, and the youngest one would be in my arms. And we would get there, and in those days, people could come on the plane and help you off, so my family would come and help. But those were great times that they were able to connect with my family in Hawaii, and great times that they were able to bond with one another. I have seen my kids there for each other. I have seen them with Malia, rallying around her. I have seen them reach out to each other. My oldest son, Kalani, I don't know how long ago, started a sibling luncheon. Once a month, they met somewhere. They took turns choosing the restaurant, but they had sibling luncheons where they would have time to bond together. And I believe once COVID's over with and their boys are back at work, that they'll do that again. But I told Malia in days before she passed that I now had 3 sons, because Dave, as far as I'm concerned, is a son and not a son-in-law. He has done so much for me and my family. He has been a strength, a beacon. And I have seen my children reach out to him and his family, which I know will continue. This is all I am sharing, but if any of you have any stories that you would like to share or anything you would like to say, this is open mic time until Kalani gets up.
So I wanted to tell you all about my dream that I had with Mom. So I turned around the corner on the wall that separates the kitchen and the family room, and for some reason Mom's dead body was laying on there. And then I looked closer and she was breathing really hard, which kind of freaked me out. And then she totally jumped up with hair and she looked happy, her arms in the air. Then she teleported on one of our high chairs next to the wall. And so we said hi and we hugged, and I told her, don't wake up like that, because it freaked me out. So she was like, okay. And then I asked her if I should hug Dad for you, and she said, no, I'm hugging him right now. And so we did more. We said a bunch of I love yous and more hugs. And so I finally said I should probably go, so she agreed. And I just really felt her.
Okay. All right. Malia asked me to share a story, and I don't entirely know what I'm gonna share, but I'll share the dream I had with her. Malia taught me a lot about aloha and hula and the Hawaiian culture, and she touched me with that, and she taught me everything I know. And I was having a real hard time accepting that she's gone and I don't have anyone to ask questions. I'm like, okay, what, am I doing this move right or anything? And so recently I had this dream of her coming to me and she was dancing beautifully. And I went up and I actually danced good. And she taught me another dance. And I don't remember exactly what that dance was, but she told me to remember the dances I had learned, especially the one that she taught me first. Honolulu Lights. And ever since then, I've been practicing that song over and over again because it was the first song that she taught me, and I feel like the first time me and Malia really connected was her teaching me that dance. Anyways, but I absolutely love you, Malia, and I'll always remember you.
Hi, my name's Alan Taggart, and I'm nephew of Dave and Malia. And when you think about people that make a positive influence in your life growing up, and you think of how important caring adults, caring adult mentors are in just growing up as a kid, that was definitely my Uncle Dave and Aunt Malia. There's just a few things that come to my mind of the things that they helped me. They were just, I love the life story that has been shared of their journey together, and because I always saw positive examples of marriages, my mom and dad, but my Uncle Dave and Aunt Malia, and I always wanted to be just like them, and I was so grateful for them doing things like both of them teaching me about amateur ham radio and convincing me to get my radio license, and I kept that up for 10 years, and things like Aunt Malia being with my mom and dad to go with me through the temple for the first time in preparation for my mission. And Aunt Malia is such a positive example to me, and I want to live my life authentically like she did, and how an amazing team Uncle Dave and Aunt Malia work together. I want my family to be like that too. So that's my story.
I was there that day that Dave and Malia met. And the thing I remember the most about that night was there were sparks that I could see that went between them. And I knew at that moment that Dave had found a woman that not only he could love with all his heart, but that would love him the way he deserved to be loved. And I want to thank Pulani and Leon for raising such a beautiful young woman that became part of our family. She was like a daughter to me, and her children are so precious to me. I love her so much, and I miss her. That's just what I want to say.
So like Krista said, Malia came to live with us for her junior year of high school. And because it was Malia, I'm sorry, I have to share a funny story. She, with her and my sister Steph in the house, it was never, ever quiet. And it was loud and it was crazy. And my brothers found that she was really easy to pick on. So that's where those Get Tough sessions came from. They thought she needed to be a little more tough. But we would, because we were in Arizona at the time, we would listen to country music. And one of our favorites was Callin' Baton Rouge. And even when that song comes on today, I can still see her in my mind. We would like kick up our heels and dance and get a little crazy in the living room. And such a good time. But one of the stories that will go down in Graham family history is when we were playing Running with the Bulls. And for whatever reason, my brothers were having a blanket and they were like, shaking it out like that. And she would put her hands up like this and she'd go running at him. And it was all fun and games until they put it in front of the piano. That was in the middle of the living room and she knew it was there. But So they were waving it around, and she went and she ran head first into the piano. And it was hilarious and funny, and she was on the floor laughing, and we were on the floor laughing. And anyway, as I think of Malia today, that's what I think of. I think of her laugh, and I think of her smile, and I think of her loud, and she will always be loud and happy and smiling. And I am grateful for her, and I am so grateful that you let us have that year with her, because we all grew to love her that much more. And she became part of our immediate family just as much as she was yours, and I thank you for that. And I know that she's probably up somewhere running into pianos, but and I'm grateful for her and for her love.
I am Kalani's wife, but Malia and I go way back before Kalani and I were together. I've actually known Malia for about 30 years. I was thinking we first met when we were like 12 years old. They had moved from Ohio and we had moved from Idaho to California, so I think our families came to Vacaville about the same time. And we lived in a different ward at the time, and it was very difficult for me in that ward. And then we moved into a different home, and that put us in the same ward as Malia. So we actually grew up together in Young Women's and went to the same high school. She had classes with me, and in that ward, I was I was scared to go. I was scared to go because of the way I was treated in the ward before. And Malia was so welcoming. She was Malia. She smiled and she welcomed and she loved and accepted who I was, and it was wonderful. And that's how our friendship began, and she was great. And then in high school, we had classes together. We had geometry together, and I know she struggled with math and with that, and she'd always be like, oh, I can't do this. And then it'd be funny because we'd go to French class, and I was like, I cannot do this. Like, we had to get up and do dialogue between the two of us, and Malia would just be like, we'd always be partners because we knew each other, right? And she would sit down, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I cannot do this. And Malia seriously would grab the paper and just be like, this is what you're going to say, this is what I'm going to say, and we're just going to get up there and say it. And I was like, thanks. No kidding, she helped me pass 3 years of French class. I couldn't have done it without her. And so I was really lucky when she became my sister-in-law, really lucky. And I'm really grateful for that. And it was easy to have her as part of our family and be part of her family. Throughout the years, Malia was always there. I was always amazed. This mom, she would always do these Hawaiian, right? These luncheons or these dinners. And seriously, like, I'll just say the rest of us kids are like, what are you getting yourself into? Like, are you kidding? Like, how old are you? I'm sorry. This is like so truth coming out. But we'd be like, what? And then there's Malia. She's like, hey, Mom, when do you need me? When do you need my help? When do you need me to set up? When do you need me to serve? She was there. And it was a very humbling. Every time I'd be like, okay, well, we're there. We're there for you, Mom. And she really taught us that we're there for our family when they need us. And I'll never forget the many times, every time that we needed some kind of Hawaiian for like Ashley's 8th birthday, we needed somebody to come teach hula or, a little Hawaiian party, she would be there. And when I was in Young Women's, needed somebody to come teach the young women about hula, and she would be there. And every time I watched her dance, tears would come to my eyes because have never seen someone dance hula so beautiful. She radiated it and just was so amazing, and I'm grateful for that. And this is my last story about Malia. When we were getting ready to move out of our home in Payson, okay, so this was after she was diagnosed with cancer, had gone through chemo, and I sent out a message to the family, a message to neighbors, hey, I need help painting my house. This is the last, we painted our house completely before we moved out of it. And neighbors showed up, and that afternoon, Malia showed up, and she goes, I don't have much time. I just have like an hour or two. And you could see her body was tired. She was tired. And I couldn't believe here she was, someone who was recovering from chemo, that she would be there. And that sums up who she is. No matter how she was feeling, she was there for people. She was there to help no matter what. And I love her.
Hey, I'm Colin. I had an awesome opportunity to actually live with them for about 3 months after a summer. And that 3 months was so magical. Dave is not kidding when he says that they built that home out of love. When I moved in, I thought I wasn't going to intrude on you guys. I was going to mess your system up. No, I felt so welcomed. I felt like I've been living there since I was born. While living there, I had a lot of amazing experiences with you guys. Football Sundays were my favorite. I learned to never go against her own team, never cheer for the other team, or the wrath of Malia will come upon you. But I really got to experience that side of Malia, the compassionate side, the loving side. Not just her, but all of you guys. I got to see her passionate side. We had an awesome experience too when we went to that Jazz game. I got me and her side by side just yelling, hoping that the Jazz would win. But I just know that she'll never be forgotten, that she's going to be here with us forever, and that one day we'll be able to see her, be able to cheer alongside her once again.
I wasn't planning on coming up here, but for whatever reason, I woke up this morning and something just kind of stuck in my head. Didn't know why. It's another funny story. But I don't know about you guys, but I know at least in our family, like me and my kids, like in my wife, at the end of the movies, we'll look at the credits, and we'll just kind of pick out the funny names and kind of look through them, and, oh, that's a funny name, that's a funny one. I remember when we did that as kids, and when we were really young, Malia had set out a plan. And her plan was her last name was going to be Oppenheimer, because she saw that in credits and thought that was funny. And so Jada, you probably missed a bullet because your name would have been Eunice. Mia, your name would have been Eucliptia. And Taylor, I don't know if it was going to be a boy or a dog, but your name would have been Clyde. So for whatever reason, Malia had seen those names, and I remember for years after seeing those, she would pick them out. She'd be like, I'm going to marry an Oppenheimer, I'm going to have Eunice, Eucliptia, and Clyde, and everything's going to be perfect. And for whatever reason, plans don't always work out well. Plans, we make them, and sometimes they get broken. And sometimes they come out for the better. I know that Malia looking at her wonderful husband, her 3 beautiful children. Wouldn't have changed that for anything. And like my sister said, when we get on the other side and the other shore with her and all of our family, we'll be able to look back on all the plans that we tried to make, and we'll say, that's right, those plans didn't work out. They actually worked out better. I don't know what the plan was for cancer and why she had to leave. But someday, we'll know and we'll realize, and we'll see that it's all done because of love. That's my story about Malia.
So I am Callie, and Malia and I went to BYU Hawaii together. Becca's in the back, so we were mentioned in that part of her story. And I am so grateful that I was a part of her story. I remember that my sister had went to BYU Hawaii. She's a year older than me, so she had went the year before and was trying to convince me to go as well. And at the time she was trying to convince me, I would have never been allowed to go to BYU, so I had to clean up some things. And I remember getting there and it feeling so foreign. My sister had moved off, and I remember my roommate was 17 and she was from another island. And I don't exactly remember the moment I met Malia, but I remember that my dorm was here and her dorm was here. And somehow I ended up in her dorm all the time. And at that point I felt like I did become and had family there, because I'd go to Graham's house as well. And what I remember about her house was we loved it, but we were scared. You don't mess with her. But you felt loved. You felt the aloha. So one story I'll share about Malia and I is we decided at some point that we were going to be rebellious, and we were going to get on a plane, and we were going to go and hitchhike Maui. And we kind of made these plans where we wanted to see. She had said maybe she had an uncle or someone that we could see if we could go stay a night with, and we would ride the bus all over. So we get on the plane, and we were also like rebellious because we're going to have like $20. So we can't have a lot of money. We're going to go do this. And we get off the airplane and start asking, like, okay, how do you get on the bus? And there's like, well, there's no transit system here. We're like, so there's no bus? Like, how are we going to do this? And that became the most adventurous 3 days that Mom and Dad probably do not want to know, because we never stayed with Uncle whomever. We stayed with some security guard that saw us and was like, what is going on? And we're like, well, we don't have a place to stay. And he's like, I've got you. And he really did. And thank heavens it worked out the way that it did. He took us to see our lighthouse, different parts of the island. And I just remember that was the essence of Malia, was her adventurous spirit. What I loved as well as Becca, Malia, and I, throughout all these years, we would find the time when we were all gathered together to do dinner. And one thing I will say that I was always jealous about was she would talk about how much she loved Dave and her kids. And that you knew that she truly did find the love of her life. And all 4 of you guys. I'm so grateful for her. and that I was able to be a part of her story. Hello, oh, wait.
I'm Dallin too. I got to marry Dave and Malia's niece. And I remember when we first started dating, I didn't hear about her siblings. I didn't hear about her parents. I heard about Malia. That was the first person I knew about was Malia. And even just through her words, I felt so connected to her. I was born and raised in Laie, Hawaii. And to me, the aloha spirit is something that I hadn't felt in a long time. And I was scared that I wasn't going to get to meet Malia because she wanted family. And when Emily and I discussed getting engaged, Malia was like, okay, I'll meet him. And the second I entered their home, I felt that. I got to sit down with Malia. And that feeling washed over me, and it's something I'll never forget. And one of the things she said to me probably 10 to 15 times was, you take care of my Emily. And I could feel the love that she had. And I've gotten to spend a lot of time with Dave and his kids and really grown to love them as well. I've been boating with them a couple of times, and every time I always get to ride up the canyon with Dave. And we have a lot of fun listening to music and just talking about everything that they've done, everything that they continue to do. And I'll never forget that moment that I got to meet Malia, because I knew how much she meant to Emily. And she means a lot to me as well.
I just had two really quick stories that I was reflecting on. The first time I met Malia, I knew we were going to be best friends forever because I'm a corner brownie girl, and she explained to me the gram system of the 3 points, the 2 points, and the 1 point. And she was a middle girl, and I was a corner, and that was my first time I ever met her, and I knew we were going to be best friends forever. But I felt very, very blessed that she was able to be at my wedding to Alan, her nephew. And Alan, I always remember after we were married, she came up and she hugged us so tight, put her arms around our necks and banged our heads together and whispered in our ears. And she said, always, always remember exactly the way that you feel right now. And I know that she had so much love in her heart and the way that she felt, and I know that she lived with that in her marriage, and I'm so grateful for that. And that she imparted that to us. And just like Alan said, you guys have been such an inspiration and joy to us. So I'm grateful for Malia and her love.
I have to explain the corner thing really quick. I know I've already talked way too much, but I have to tell this really quick story. So if you're eating a pan of brownies or a coffee cake or anything like that at the Graham house, you better know what you're doing. So the first time I had breakfast at their house, so I'm a corner person too, Maria. I like the corner. But I'm trying to be nice, and save the corners for everybody, because I think everybody loves corners. So I start taking the middle of the coffee cake. I take one, then I take another. And I think it was Bud that turned and looked at her and said, "Are you going to say something to him?" And it was like, everybody was like staring at me. I didn't know what was going on. And it's like, he's had like 6 already. And I said, 6? I've had like 2. I don't understand it. And then she's like, "Oh, yeah, there's a point system. Corners are 1, sides are 2, and middles are 3s. You can't have 2 3s. That's too many." I mean, so I was thoroughly embarrassed and I felt horrible. I was like, seriously, you guys, I would have taken the corner. They're like, "Yeah, sure, Dave. Sure, you would have taken the corner." All right, that's my story.
Aloha, everyone. Malia and I were hula sisters. We knew each other before from different Hawaiian things, but that's when our relationship really grew. And she went from being a hula sister to the sister of my heart, because we did everything together. We worked hard together. We uniki together, and we just had a chunk of our life that was dedicated to something bigger than us that was so special. But I don't think I could have done it without her, because Malia, she never gives up. There was a point where there were 5 of us that we were kind of on the line. And if we didn't pass a test, we were done. She stayed up. She got up early in the morning with me and got me out of bed, made me work, took me down to the beach, made me work. She chanted with me. She danced with me. She did everything with me because she wasn't going to let me fail. And you probably all know that somewhere in your lives when you think you can't do it. There's always somebody there that's stronger than you that keeps you going. And Malia was like that. And it was never a taskmaster. It was always with love in her heart, and always because she wants you to succeed. And one of the things about being a hula sister with her, too, is, like they said, Mapuana is her aunt. And one of the first promises she made me make was not to let any of our hula sisters know that Auntie Mapu was her auntie, that she was just going to be her kumu just like everybody else, because she wanted to do this herself. And she got away with it for a couple of years. But then we all find out, and it didn't matter then anymore. And she was right. We didn't need to know that, because she was there working just as hard as anybody else. No favors, no, you wouldn't even have known. And that's the way she wanted it. And I'm glad that I was able to honor that promise for her. She is sorely missed in my life, because I've gone through cancer also, so we had a lot to talk about. And I don't know why I'm still here and she's gone, because she does so much for the world. Maybe it was so that she could be an example to all of us of the things that we should be doing. Loving everybody, sharing aloha in the world. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
I have to sit there and kind of chuckle because I hear Malia laughing in my ear because my stomach is growling and the girls keep looking at me going, I'm just like, it's fine, sorry. But, and the reason I laugh about that is because Malia would always come to me and apologize for being the inappropriate aunt. She loved to talk with my kids and things like that. And sometimes she would slip and say something that she thought maybe I wouldn't approve of or whatever, and she would apologize, which just made me laugh because she was always so authentic and she was always so real. And that is one of the qualities that I loved about her so much. I didn't grow up with sisters, and so she was a sister to me. And I told her it really stunk that I had to say goodbye to a sister that I'd wanted for so long. Her and Krista have been my two sisters in my life. I'm so grateful for her journey and her culture. I had started dancing hula when I was 8 years old and immediately fell in love with the Polynesian culture and the people and felt such a connection to it, and I danced all my life. And when I moved here to Utah, I kind of mourned the fact that my halau and my kumus that I had were all in California, and it was just going to be hard because I didn't have anybody to dance with anymore. But when Malia began her journey, she gave me the privilege of watching over her 3 precious children while she would go to her hula workshops, and I got to practice being a grandma and get to spoil and love on her kids. And that is where I came to know and see how much she loved her family. It was actually kind of hard for her to leave her children behind because she loved them so much. These kids and her husband have meant everything to her. I remember a couple weeks after she had Jada, she called me, and with just tears in her voice, she's just like, I've always wanted to have a career. I've planned on that. And I don't know what to do. She says, because I love my baby so much. And we talked about the blessings and the rewards of being a mom. Because at that point I had been a stay-at-home mom and been able to be blessed to be in my children's life. And we talked about the pros and cons. And I just saw this shift in her where all of a sudden she became very determined that I knew at that moment that was going to be her calling. That was going to be the first thing that she was going to make sure that she did in her life, is to take care of her children. And she believed with every part of her being, that her children needed to have her in their life. And I know she has never regretted that. I'm so grateful for the opportunities that she gave me to dance together with her and to allow me to be a part of that journey. We were blessed to dance at 3 of my children's weddings, and for her to teach me a hula for each of them. I'm so grateful for that gift. Her and Dave and Sean and I have developed an amazing relationship over the years together, and so grateful for that. And as many times as she said that her and Dave wanted to grow up and be like us, Sean has said the same thing, that we want to grow up and be like them. The love that they have created in their home is everything that I have ever wanted in my home. And it's beautiful. It is what love really should be. I want her to know. I want her to know that she did an amazing job and continues to do so. She is with this family every day. I see it and I feel her constantly. And her love, her sass, her personality, her everything just shines through each and every one of you. She will continue to bless this world, and her family will make sure of that by their examples. And I am so grateful for that.
I gotta carry Malia with me too. I didn't think I was gonna come up and talk. because I just wanted everybody else to share their experience, but I don't know, just something hit me. I was listening to Mom talk, but one thing that Malia taught me for sure is connection. Ever since I started recognizing that, I guess my aunts and uncles, when the kids would come over to Merced, and I was a teenager at the time, and I was going through lots of hard stuff, and I remember I was just very upset with my life, and I just wanted to cut everything off, like love and connection. And Malia, I just remember specifically, despite my ornery lifestyle I was going through, she would always take time to sit me down and ask, "How are you doing?" Just a very small question. And I never really understood why she would do that, like talk to somebody like me. And so throughout the years I would struggle, but she would always check in with me no matter what. And I guess I started to realize that even more, the deeper love for like Aloha, and is when I got to live in their home as well, when I got back from my mission. And it's so interesting, it's like a full circle for me. Like, I remember even as a teenager, my mom would introduce me to hula, and I just was like, I don't want to be like you, Mom. Like, I just want to do whatever. But Malia really taught me the true meaning of hula and how it brings that aloha. And I was just like I just remember when Emily and I would just go to her house and go downstairs with the mirrors and just practice the hula dance. And I remember Mia would watch too. And I just remembered Mia would like dance all the time with us when she was, whatever she would. But yeah, it just all came together where it's like, that's just what it is. Like she is the true example of like connection and love, and I want to carry that. And I know it's still hard because it's been ingrained in me all my life, not to connect, but I found love. I found somebody who I could truly love, and I felt like she just gave me that blessing to carry on that, and so she is definitely somebody that I want to carry with me forever. But yeah, that's my story.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your experiences of Malia. I can remember when I got the call in January. I was at work and got a text message saying, "You need to go to Malia's now because we think it's the end." That was it was about crazy weekend. And I am so very grateful that she was able to bounce back from that and that we had a few extra months with her. And what Dave said is true. The siblings, we practically lived there. That was our second home. And thank you, Dave, for opening up that home. It allowed me to reconnect to my sister and get to know her and her family a little bit more and love them a little bit more. And I will always be grateful for that chance and that opportunity that I was given to reconnect to her. We don't always know when those around us will be called home. But I would like to challenge each of you to find someone whom you could reconnect to. Someone who maybe you haven't spoken with in a while, an old friend, family member, whomever, but just reconnect with them. Get to know them a little more, get to love them a little more. Because that's what Malia would do if she was here. She will always be missed, but she will never be forgotten. Our dear Heavenly Father, with sadness in our hearts, but with gratitude to have known a choice and special daughter of Thee, we come before Thee and give Thee thanks for the opportunity that we've had to celebrate in Malia's life and in the joy and the goodness that she brought to this world. Father, we are all blessed for knowing and interacting with Malia. And we know that those interactions will continue when all of us return home to that distant shore and can reunite with her again. Father, we ask a special blessing to be with those of us who remain, that the Holy Comforter might bring peace to our souls and smiles to our faces once again. We ask a special blessing to be on Malia's family, that they may continue to feel her presence and her love for them, and the Savior's love for all of us. These blessings we ask and pray for in our Savior and Redeemer, the one who heals all hurts and pains, even Jesus Christ. Amen.
Aloha. They've asked me to say a few words about Malia and her journey with me. And like many of my nieces and nephews, their journey started when I was asked to give a name. And when Malia was born on May 1st, that was the name that came to me, Malia. Also interesting that her mom and dad decided that Malia would be her first name, and the other children had their Hawaiian names as their middle name. It's often said here in Hawaii that the names that are given, the person will grow into that name. And so names are really important and really special and given with a lot of thought. And I think of just the fact that Malia was her first name sent her on a different path than her brothers and her sister. Unfortunately for us who live in Hawaii, it sent her to us many, many times. That name Malia brought her home many, many times. I always felt a strong connection to her. I don't know if it's because we were both the third child in a family of 4. If we were both the one that was a little different than our siblings, or if it was just the love that we have for being Hawaiian, for our culture, and for living the words of aloha. Malia was, from the day she walked into class, the best student that I've had. One of the best. It's really hard to pick one best, but she was right up there. And she made me promise, just like she made Charmaine promise, that I wouldn't let on that she was my niece. So I couldn't give her an extra hug. I couldn't ask her how her family was during class. We saved that for private time. And she did keep that secret for as long as I could. And then one day I just had to reveal that she was my niece because I felt that I was getting very close to her and that I knew the students would see that. And just like Charmaine said, it didn't matter because by then she had already established herself as Malia. The Malia that we all know. The Malia that I heard about today from all of you. Everything everyone said today, I would have said all over again about Malia. But when she came on her journey for hula, that was my blessing. That she brought my sister Pua back into my life, and her whole family with her, and her new family as well. So much so that I was welcomed into their home in January for 3 weeks to live in the basement and to be with Malia every day. What I learned from that is that I promise her and all of you that every day I will do something Malia. Because she's not here to do it for herself. She will reach us. But all the many people that weren't touched by her, it's our job now to touch them, to give them a little bit of Malia, because we all carry some of her. And we want to take that little spark that she was and explode it into many, many fireworks around the world. So thank you for Kalani. Thank you, Kalani, for reminding us to call somebody we haven't talked to for a long time, to reach out to a family member, to give somebody love that we haven't given love for a long time. The closing mele that I've chosen today comes from our tradition of hula. I learned it from Auntie Mucka Bacon, the lady who is on our wall in the top row in the center. She is one of the daughters of Mary of Kavena Pupui. This is a song, this is a mele from the story of Hi'iaka and Pele, for those of you who know that story. When Hi'iaka was on her way to Kauai, she went down by way of Puna. She went there first, and being sleepy, she turned to the volcano and sang this song to her sister Pele as her good night song. This song, Mukiki Vai, closes with these lines. Your love reaches out to me, lulling me to sleep. Malia, love we hope. With all our love, we will see you again. Mukiki vai nele mune akamanu okava ilila naika uka okaliu akamanu ahai hai kanulawa o ukaya ikauka La'au kava o puna, ma puna puna maiana o aloha. Ia unei e ho'ola'au, maiana ia ue mo.
Thank you all for coming. You're welcome to have lunch. I've got Mobetas and Clark's Malasadas and Hawaiian Suns out in the pavilion. Please come out and eat lunch with us. We have plenty.
Come, my love.